So good morning, everyone, and hope you can hear me out in the outer hall, okay? Thank you. So last week I gave a talk on the sense of self, and the stronger the sense of self is, I believe, or I suggest, that the less we're in our senses. And that one of the switches that happen when we meditate is we begin becoming embodied more and more in our senses, our physical senses. The sense of being in a body, embodied in a body, connected in the body. And to the degree to which the sense of self is related to thinking, ideas, stories, memories, and all that kinds of stuff, it's very easy for people to identify the self as connected to thinking. And we have this famous expression that comes from French, I think, therefore I am, that a French philosopher came up with. And the Buddhists, if they were Buddhists, were going to use the same three words, they'd probably say, I am, therefore I think. And the emness comes first, and thinking is just kind of like an appendage or addition on top of it. And that thinking world can be a support for us. It augments the fuller way of we being in the world, but it doesn't take predominance. And for some of us, there are times in our lives, probably some of you, where the thinking takes the lead. We're living in the thinking, moving forward. It's the momentum, the pressure to think, the forward directionality, the addiction to thinking, the magnetism of thinking and engaging in thoughts it becomes a little bit like having the cart in front of the horse. Has a little bit like having the thoughts are ahead and the body is following along. The body is the appendage to thinking. And there's so much thinking going on and jumping around from one thought to the other, to what our plans are, what to do, figuring everything out. And I know that I'm quite capable of beginning to just feel like there's a lot to do, and my mind is just jumping around between them. And the more I do that, the less I'm in touch with my body, the less that I'm here. And that things like sitting down to meditate begins to put the horse in front of the cart. Sitting down to meditate places the central sense of being alive here in this body, being connected here, more than the sense of aliveness somehow inhabiting the world of thinking, the drive to think. And one of the interesting questions to ask any of us is, where do you live? And not your address. But, and there's plenty of people who live in their thinking. That's the world that they inhabit. And in Buddhist practice, we're trying to live in our bodies more than in our minds, to be embodied here. And so the experience of being in the body belongs to the realm of senses, the sense capacities we have, and the world of sensations. And what is really rich, really valuable in the teachings of the Buddha is that he distinguishes between two different areas of sensing. So there's those sensations that we experience that come from having our senses stimulated by the outer world. So if it's cold outside, then our temperature nerves senses the cold, and that has a whole effect on our system. And the whole physiology begins to change and shift the more cold we feel, as a way of taking care of ourselves. And it's a rich, dynamic inner world that gets activated. If our senses pick up warmth, it isn't just simply there's warmth on our skin, but that is tied to a whole dynamic system inside of temperature regulation. Your pores and sweat and who knows all the things that go on. Lots of things go on. And so this world of senses is a rich world of regulation, of finding our way, understanding our way in this world. So if we have pain, pain is an extremely valuable thing to have. And so generally, it gives us a signal that something is off, that we should respond to. Just as I say that, I remember the time when I was staying in a little hut in Thailand, and I think I was taking a nap, or maybe I was sleeping, but I was sleeping, and I had a dream. And in the dream, I was walking barefoot up a grassy knoll, and when I came to the top of the knoll, I stepped down, and there was a stake in the grass, and my toe went into that stake, and it hurt. But it was a dream, so it's okay. But it really hurt. But I knew I was dreaming. It's just a dream. But it really hurt. So I opened my eyes to look, and there was this big ant biting my toe. And, I was getting a signal, danger signal. But in this dream state, the message was coming through these images that I initially misinterpreted. It's just a dream. And so, again, there's this dynamic, rich system inside that gets activated by something like pain. That who knows all the things physiologically, psychologically, mentally that are triggered by it. But in that situation, it was that dynamic inner world of pain played itself out in a dream. How did it get from the toe to the dream? It's a rich kind of dynamic world. It's not just pain. It's not just pleasure. It's not just these simple things. The senses we experience are richly connected. And what happens as we start meditating, I think in an ideal world, it's not easy, is that we've become more whole, where all our apparatus, all our capacity to be attuned, to be sensitive, to be aware of what's happening here, comes alive. And in a sense, our body becomes an antenna. An antenna for the sense input coming from the world around us. And that sense input is so vast, we don't even know, we can't even take in accurately the details, but the brain, the mind, their inner life takes the gestalt and comes together with all kinds of things. I'm walking down the street, maybe I go into the dark alley, and there's some shadows of people in the corners of the dark alley, and I'm just fine, I'm happy. And the next thing I know, my stomach is getting all tight. And I wonder why my stomach is tight. I look around, oh, these people want to mug me. The signal of danger came in without my ordinary conscious mind, which is busy probably thinking about things, too busy to notice, but something is noticing, something is taking in the danger, and it's being expressed someplace within. So the body is an antenna. The body picks up things, and it's part of that bigger apparatus of experiencing that's so valuable. And so the more we can be connected to our body, the more we feel sometimes, oh, something's off here. What's going on? Something is right here. What's going on here? Or if I go this direction, it just feels like that, feels like a rightness, a goodness to it. Wholesome. This is wholesome. This direction is unwholesome. This direction, this activity is nourishing. This activity is not nourishing. And one of the great joys that I've had from doing this practice is really getting a sense of this inner nourishment that's possible. That's in the feeling and sense of nourishment, of being nourished by the activities I do, and feeling what it's like to do something which is denourishing. That's the opposite. And then in Buddhist practice, generally the guide for what we do is to choose what's nourishing, what's wholesome, what has a certain, not just feels right, but it actually feels like it fills us with a sense of rightness and goodness and warmth, and kind of makes us kind of better people, and avoid the stuff that does the opposite. So as we tune in to the body, we make this switch from having the cart in front of the horse to the horse. I don't know if it's behind the horse in front, or I like to think of it as no cart involved. It's rather than us being behind the horse pushing it, we're on the horse. Or being in front of the horse pulling it. I don't know what the analogy is, but the point being, we get to sit on the horse. And the horse is our whole being, the wholeness of it all. And it's phenomenal that we have this apparatus, the body, that can support us, has this intelligence, and it has this antenna that gives us so much information. And so to drop into this body, and I love this pyramid that we have on the, they used to have it, do we have it anymore? Do we even have money anymore? This pyramid with the eye on the top of the pyramid. Sometimes I think of the human being as a pyramid where the body is the big, wide foundation. Then there's maybe the emotions in the middle, and then there's thoughts on the top. And if you tip the pyramid over on its head, it's very unstable. But if you have it all in the right position, then it's stable. And so the pride of place, because it's so insecure, is we give into thinking. It gets to be up there where that little eye is. And maybe it has a good overview sometimes, but it's just a small part of who we are. A huge part of what we are is the body, not the hunk of flesh, but this rich, dynamic world of the senses that come alive through the body, the processing in the body. So that was all leading up to the Buddha distinguishes between two kinds of sense experiences we can have in the body. And so the ordinary one is when the senses are stimulated by the outside world. So we hear a sound. And that also has this ripple effect within us that can be quite dynamic, more than we often realize. What we see through the eyes. We see certain things, and so that's maybe a little bit easier, but sound sometimes too can be very soothing, very satisfying, very inspiring to hear. Music of certain kinds, voices of certain types. Some voices and music is jarring. And we can see things, same thing. Some sights are actually nourishing and supportive. It shift the inner landscape dramatically. And I love water. And so, when I drive around the Bay Area, it's rather unfortunate that I have to usually be the driver. Because going across the San Mateo Bridge, or just at a little place on 101 going to San Francisco, just before you get to Candlestick Park, or whatever it is, I just love to look out across the water. And I can't do enough of it if I'm driving. But just to look out on flat, quiet, calm water is, for me, is so, something settles deep in me. I grew up around water, so maybe that's why. So things come in through the eyes, tongue, smell, the body. Oddly enough, you have to kind of hopefully go along with me. In the psychology of Buddhism, the mind is a sense organ as well. It's a sixth sense organ. So our ability to have a thought and know we're thinking is the mind sense that's seeing it, knowing it somehow. Oddly enough, this is the odd part, even more odd. Those thoughts are sometimes considered to be external stimuli on that sense door. But that seems strange because most of us are our thinking. I mean, what could be more personal? And now you're saying it's outside. One more thing's outside that's coming. And but it makes more sense if you begin understanding that the Buddha had a whole other area of sensing that was not the senses being stimulated by something outside. And he made this distinction he made is between sensations of the flesh are somehow stimulated, and sensations not of the flesh. Usually the translators don't want to translate it that way into English. So one way they translate it is worldly sensations, worldly feelings, and non-worldly feelings. So that just to me is confusing. Non-worldly, and the sensation is not of the flesh. The things that arise in the sense field, but not because some particular thing stimulated the senses. So, for example, when I've been around little children, and like I used to go to my kids' nursery school, and there was lots of stimulation there, but something deep inside of me kind of just got really sweet. I really kind of feel, this is kind of sweet, quiet, warm, kind of loving. Especially when all the nursery kids were taking a nap. That's like one of the great sights. To sit there with all these kids so peaceful and quiet napping. Oh, who would want to wake them? My son actually, I think both kids, but my older son, he got expelled from school at the first chance. I mean, he started early with this because he went to nursery school and he would wake up the other kids during the nap. And the teacher just wouldn't have it. So that was his beginning of his school career. So we found a better place for him. But the sweetness, that would be considered not of the flesh. Even though we feel it in the flesh, we feel it in the body, but it's not a particular thing that's being stimulated. And maybe the way I felt that way was related to all kinds of things. It was part of the rich part of the inner landscape that was coming alive. I felt very nourished and supported by that. Sitting in meditation, which is in Buddhism, the classic reference point for this not of the flesh. Sitting in meditation, minding your own business, and having nothing good coming from the outside, but starting to feel settled and calm and warm and connected and at ease, feeling safe, feeling somehow involved in a nice way with the meditation. And then there starts being this suffusion of feeling of calm, feeling of pleasure, feeling of goodness, feeling of, I'm home. That you can't really pinpoint to a particular thing having been stimulated. It's not like, someone went in there and tickled you in a particular place in your heart or something. But it's something that's much more diffuse through the body. And you can't, you can maybe have tension in your shoulder, and that's a very particular spot that you can bring maybe to feel that tightness or the hardness or the pain or the belly. But I'm afraid I can feel the tightness in my belly, very clear space. But this not of the flesh thing doesn't have that specificity. It's something a little bit broader and wider. So the thinking mind that likes to have things, likes to want something, wants to define itself by something, and hold on to it, there's not actually something to hold on to there because it's so diffuse. But it's some of the most valuable feelings we can have as a human being. These feelings not of the flesh. That's where love that is wholesome and nourishing, comes out that way through us. The love, sometimes what's confused with love is intense desire. There's a lot of things that get confused for this wholesome, not of the flesh love. Sometimes some people, what they think of as love is the tremendous delight they have that someone else loves them. They don't actually love the other person. They just really thrive on being loved. And so they say, I love you, but it's really because how good they make me feel. Like, I'm important here. I don't know if that's the same kind of deep, satisfying way of feeling something that we have in Buddhism. That's partly based on an attachment. Or sometimes love is confused with security, which is such an important thing to have for our very sense of being alive and well-being. And sometimes the person who provides us with security is that which we kind of think we love, but maybe it's a kind of love, but there's a different kind of love that's deep, that's suffusive, that arises with this kind of warmth or delight or deep sense of appreciation, and that's almost like there's no desire in it. It might give birth to certain kinds of motivations, inspirations, aspirations, expressions, but it's not caught in any attachment, any clinging, any need to have something happen. So this is not of the flesh. It's sensations, but it's a very different species of sensations than the species that come from a particular sense door being stimulated, including being stimulated by particular thought. I've been minding my own business in meditation, feeling quite content and happy, maybe. And then somehow my mind brings up a thought of someone who 15 years ago offended me. That's all it takes. And suddenly, I'm like captured by that particular thought and stimulated by it, and my calm just dissipated. Now I'm tense. That didn't 0 to 60 in half a second. It's quite something what's possible in there. And but then it's very particular. Things have gotten tight. Things have gotten, kind of agitated by the stimulation from those thoughts. But what happens when the thoughts get quiet and peaceful, and our thoughts are not stimulating? I've also been stimulated by thoughts of pleasure. I won't tell you the details. But, and feel kind of delightful and pleasure suffusing my body. But it hasn't been nourishing. To confuse pleasure with nourishment is one of the things that we can distinguish, or the ability to distinguish pleasures from nourishing pleasure, or denourishing pleasure from nourishing pleasure, is one of the things that comes with this heightened sensitivity to our body and what's going on here. And some pleasures are pleasant in the moment, but are harmful for us in the long term. Some things that are actually feel unpleasant in the moment can lead to a sense of profound feeling of well-being in this not of the flesh world that's part of who we are. And again, taking care of young children, I've had to do some pretty unpleasant things conventionally. I mean, my favorite one to tell you, I hope it's okay. Maybe I should warn you what's coming. Stay in your seat. No, but it was this amazing thing that when my baby was pretty young, and he was sleeping next to us in bed next to us, and got sick, and suddenly we had to deal with this sick baby, and it was clear that he was going to throw up. I didn't know people could do this. It was very unpleasant on one hand, but it was also at the same time, so it was unpleasant conventionally, but I was filled with a feeling of compassion, love, generosity, goodness. I took my hands, cupped them together to receive the vomit. Can you believe it? It never once had ever occurred to me that that was a possibility. And that I would have these good, amazingly, like, of course I'm going to do this for my child. Wow, like, what is, wow, So it was unpleasant in some ways, but boy, the sense of, it was really pleasant in this inner landscape that has come alive for me through this practice. So as we go through our life, we understand it, we're guided by a very different sensibility when we're in touch with this world, not of the senses. If it's all about the senses, it's all about the ideas, all about the thoughts, we really limit ourselves, and we're not, not availing ourselves of the full richness of what it's like to be a human being. So this switch from being in thoughts to being embodied is huge. And I propose that, this kind of simple idea that's frequent now, I think, that human beings evolved in the plains of Africa a long time ago to use all their senses. All their senses are alive and connected and working together, so that we have connected to this deeper area of wisdom, not of the flesh, this deeper kind of inner, some people might say of the heart, some people maybe say of the belly, some people say someplace inner, this bigger, that's where a tremendous amount of wisdom resides. What kind of wisdom? The wisdom between what is healthy and what is not healthy spiritually. What is nourishing or not nourishing? What is beneficial for oneself, and This is the world of love, of compassion, of care, of generosity, of respect, of kindness, of empathy, of mutuality, of friendship. It's a rich, rich world that can flow from this deeper place. It's not a world of exchange and negotiation. I'll do X and you do Y for me. It's more of a wellspring. It's a fountain that emerges from below. It's a generative world that flows upwards and outwards, as opposed to an impoverished world where we're taking in and trying to fill ourselves. And that's really easy when the cart is in front of the horse, when we are in our thoughts, to this complicated inner world that we live in, this rich, dynamic world that's kind of, it's under the surface of what we see, that if we're always in our thoughts, thinking and desiring and wanting and afraid and anxious and planning, there's a tremendous feeling of emptiness or lack that we feel because we're not paying attention to a big part of who we are. And something feels that lack. And one of the responses to that is to then think more, want more, look outside, search outside more. And sometimes it's a self-perpetuating movement of being more and more disconnected, and therefore feeling more lack, and then trying to fill it outside, and it goes on and on. And some people don't know any other way, because they've never been trained, never looked, never told about this deep wellspring that's available inside. And so to find this generative fountain of goodness that's within us is one of the reasons we sit to meditate, and why we learn the art of doing a switch from being concerned with thoughts. You still might think, but isn't that thinking is a problem? If there's a problem, it's being addicted to thinking. The problem is thinking the solution is in the thinking. Chasing the thoughts, participating in thoughts, living in the thoughts. We think what's really great is that if we can make that switch here, into the body, and which puts us in the present moment, because there's a rich world of the body that we're, or the heart if you prefer, it's always here. It can't be anywhere else. To find it to a switch and get grounded and centered here, you'll still think. And you'll think a lot better. But it puts the thoughts in its right place on the top of the pyramid. And your thinking will feel respected because you keep it up there on the very top. So it's not going to be insecure. It's actually, and it's more capable to participate in the whole. Participate in the way this very dynamic and rich and fascinating inner world operates that we can't even see usually. It's so complicated. But to feel like we're part of this rich, generative, dynamic world of the senses, of sensations of the flesh and of not of the flesh, to feel the interplay and the connectivity and the wholeness gives birth to a whole different way of being in the world that for some people will say, there's much more interesting stuff going on here than me. There's something inside of me which is not me, which is really valuable, really significant. That's a source of what animates our life in a wonderful way. And in Buddhism, that's often associated with liberation and freedom. To be liberated from self, to be liberated from desires, to be liberated from hatred and fear, is a way of stepping back from the limited world of preoccupation and opening and allowing for this richer world, generative world, to move through us. And I'll end with this wonderful idea, at least for me, that that rich inner generative world, it doesn't make any sense to appropriate it as yourself. It doesn't make any sense to claim it as self. It doesn't make any sense to use it for your selfish purposes. It doesn't belong to that world of self-preoccupation, self-definition. It takes you beyond the sense of self to a sense of being alive, to a sense of compassion, care, love, joy, peace, warmth, friendliness, all kinds of beautiful things that we're capable of. So, from sense of self to the senses. That's the path. So thank you. So we have about 10 minutes or so before we'll stop. So if some of you would like to ask any questions or comments, and yes, please. And if you can use the mic, that would be nice. So if you want to say your name when you first speak, you don't have to, but it's nice just to get a sense of community.
So my name is Bonnie. I don't have a question, but I want to share what happened yesterday during the retreat here. I didn't come in the morning because I need to swim. So I had a wonderful swim, and I was looking forward to the afternoon. And as you know, I haven't been back here in a long time. And within 10 minutes, I know I was doing some thinking about a relationship where there's a lot of ambiguity. I started getting this intense, crushing heart pain. And I thought I was having a heart attack. It then moved into my jaw. And my thinking then went to, oh my God, what if I die right here? And I was feeling shame, and I don't want to disrupt the Sangha, or should I leave the room? Should I go call? What do I do with this? And I decided to just be really still and to lean into the pain. And I just trusted the process. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I stopped letting go of the concern about the outcome. And I've had this happen before, so it wasn't like the only unique experience. But I think this was really a metaphor as I sit here listening to you about where I am in my life right now. I don't want to go into all of that, but thank you for this, because it definitely helped. But if I could share a contrasting situation where when I was back in Cambodia, I went back in January, and I was to see the kids, and I was sick 20 out of 23 days. And I could not have been happier. It was the happiest time I've had in 4 years. So I was just coughing and wrenching, every minute of those 23 days. And the joy that I felt, as you were talking about watching those kids nap, the joy I felt just in their presence, watching them interact with me. And, so much happens in the experience.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, first of all, is this on? Can you hear me? Okay, so first of all, I'm Kathy T. You might want to go see a doctor about your chest pain. Because women do present differently with chest pain. But anyway, now after your talk, thank you for your talk, but I'm going to sit here and say, don't think. Because, that's my inclination, is to try not to think.
So there might be another option.
Okay.
It might be more interesting to begin with to become friends with your thoughts.
Okay. And how do you do that?
Respect them, listen to them, allow them to be there, but don't be in them. The metaphor which I used yesterday is if you have a friend who's distressed and in trouble or something, and they ask you, can we meet in the park and go for a walk? And then you accompany them, listening to what they have to say. But if you get as distressed as they are, then you're probably not going to be supportive. You have to accompany them with a respectful, listening, caring way, maybe but calm and maybe equanimous. Then they really know you're hearing it, and it's meaningful for you that they're hearing you, that they know you're hearing them without being distressed. And you don't pull out your phone to look at, to check your emails while they're doing that. You're really there for them. So to be friends with your thoughts is to do maybe the same to your thinking. Don't believe them. Don't be involved in them. Don't participate in them. But accompany them. And as you accompany them, see if you can feel what more is going on under the surface. Thoughts are really just kind of like a surface phenomena. Usually they're not as important as we think they are. And if you're able to listen to your friend, in this case you, in a deeper way, but listen with calm, with equanimity. Don't look at your phone, which means don't start thinking about something else. Just really be there. You might start noticing that your thoughts maybe are arising out of some emotional source. It might be you're afraid or angry or anticipating or delighted or you want, or there's a desire or there's an aversion. You start seeing this. Thoughts are, again, a tip of an iceberg, tip of a pyramid. And so what is it that's, if you're really a good listener, a good friend, you start listening and feeling what's deeper. Because that's what your friend wants. They want to be met in that deeper place.
Thank you. That microphone is not on. It's not on? No.
Well, hopefully my response was good enough for everyone.
My name is Sylvie. When you were talking, that was very powerful, and I wanted to maybe paraphrase in a different way to make sure that I understood, because something that came from me was pretty strong. So the feelings or the senses that are of the stimulated by the outside, right? And then there are feelings or sensations or phenomena that are coming from the inside. And is it that when we remove kind of the sense of self and the self is stimulated by what it contact with in the external world, and we deep go down, like what you are talking about, I had a sense that then we reach kind of the elemental building blocks of our beings in a way. And the reason why you were talking about like compassion and love is, to me, what comes to is when we come down to that elemental sentient being kind of operating system, then we are interconnected with both the planet and other beings. And so that is why this love or compassion is coming. There is no more, I'm Sylvie.
Yeah.
I'm really part of the ecology of the universe.
Very nice. I like this very much. So, but I'd like to respond a little bit to you. I agree with you, but I want to be a little bit careful with a couple of things. One is we don't want to make the sense of self too much of a problem, because it's vague what we're talking about when we say sense of self. More central to the issue is attachment, clinging to something. So sense of self often comes with attachment. It doesn't have to. And so if it's no attachment, maybe it's okay. It's safe enough. But it's the attachment, and the reason why the attachment narrows the attention. It keeps us out of touch with the wider field of who we are. And it's through attachment then that we're not in touch with all the different ways, rich ways in which our senses take in other people, where we have mirror neurons, we have all these different ways in which we are attuned in a very deep way to other people, that we feel really connected in a very rich way. That attachment is the barrier for. So that's the little. If it's okay with you, it's a little bit of a.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you're saying that the attachment is what comes on top of our elemental humanity.
It covers it.
Covers it, right?
So and we're not. So we can't be in touch with it.
Yes, and so when we are at that attached level, we cannot really be fully connected with the universe and other people.
Yes. Very nice, Sylvie. Thank you. So okay. I think that, so in a few minutes, it'll take a while to get the lunch ready. And everyone's welcome to the potluck, and whether you brought anything or not. The most important thing to bring is yourself. And that because it's a potluck, it's a little bit social, if you would be so willing to take a few minutes here to say hello to the people around you and introduce yourself maybe to at least two people so no one's left alone in the middle of, just look around so everyone gets, and if you want to share some ideas that came out of this talk for you that's important, that would be nice, but it's just nice to make the connection here easily at the beginning. So thank you.